education. Now, civic education, I'm not referring to academic education that schools, colleges, and other institutions provide. These are important, of course. I am talking about activities and events that may not involve schools or classrooms or courses for students. These are activities that could involve members of the general public, farmers, plantation and factory workers, Orang Asli communities in the interior, housewives, grab drivers, politicians, lawyers, teachers in kindergarten, policemen, soldiers, people in detention centers and prisons. I think you see where I'm going with this. I'm just talking about all Malaysians. Somehow we need to have a way whereby civic education can reach them. And this will include foreigners as well, because foreigners are a regular part of our society and they too should be within the loop. So what we need is a program that involves everyone. And if you ask why, because we want people to think about how they participate in their broader community and how they can enhance the quality of their participation. Because I think finally everyone does have that in their mind. When you're part of a society, you do want to play a role which is also beneficial to the whole society. So the name of this program is Civic Education, which is really the major theme. So now, talking about civic education as a strategy, I have another chart that I'd like you to look at. And I think Pat has already created a beautiful chart of that, which we can look at in a minute. The components of civic education, okay? There are 5 components, as you can see. I'll go through them very quickly. First is knowledge of government and politics, rights and responsibilities, critical thinking and decision-making, community engagement, cultural awareness, and tolerance. These are the 5 components. Okay, so again, to go back again, firstly, we need to know about how the government works. People already have a general idea of it, but we need to know it better and better. We need to know how the political process works. If you get arrested by the police, you need to know what you can do about it. When is an arrest legal? When is it illegal? We need to know that. And there are many people who don't even think about it. But if they did, they would be much better informed and they would feel much more, stable as a person, So likewise, in terms of rights and responsibilities, to know what are your individual rights as outlined in the Constitution and laws. It's so easy for people to browbeat you, for politicians to browbeat you and make you think that, you are in a very vulnerable position when you are not, But the knowledge makes all the difference. And then understanding your civic duties, such as voting and jury service. We don't have jury service here yet, but, things like that. And then critical thinking and decision making. All of us, whatever role we are in society, we need to have this ability to think critically and make decisions. When you see some issues happening, we need to be able to think about it and question and make up our own minds, and not just jump to assumptions. But it doesn't come automatically. It comes through thought and interchange with others. Then we need community engagement, participating in community service, in local governance, and then encouraging people to take part in civic organizations and activities. Then finally, we need cultural awareness and tolerance. We need to know more than just our own system, our own culture. We need to know how other cultures act. There are some people who do not know anything outside of their family or their cultural background. And that is a pity because we live in a very rich society. So we need to know know this. So these are the 5 components. And what I think is that as more and more of us, as the population, get to know this, there is the possibility of beginning to deal with many of these divisive divisions happening in society today. Over the long term, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but the more we know about it, and not just adults, but everyone, through society, when we become an informed people, when we become an educated people, educated not in the sense of academically, but educated in the sense of knowing how things work, that can only be good for society. So that's what civic education strategy is as a strategy. Now, the issue is, how does that actually get started? Okay. So it will have to involve various sectors of society. It should involve the youth through schools, for instance. It should involve the educators and school administrators, teachers. It should involve community members, local residents, community leaders. It should also involve government officials, our local and national leaders. It should involve business owners and employers, people who provide jobs for their employees. They need to know this as well. And then finally, it should involve the general public. So basically what I'm saying is, it needs to involve the entire spread of society. That's where civic education will happen. How does this happen? Really, that is what we have to think about. But we do have a historical record for it. If you think of things that have been done in our society, for instance, our national philosophy about civic education, the Rukun Negara, the 5 principles of Rukun Negara, which is belief in God, loyalty to king and country, upholding the constitution, rule of law, good behavior and morality. These 5 is the consensus of this nation, that these are the basic philosophy. Just think, just to have that consensus makes a big difference, because then that gives you a place to start, So, of course, the issue is, how will this get implemented? How will this get done? Well, that is what you and I would be talking about and thinking about. But, when you talk about education, there are 2 approaches to education. One is what we call experiential education. That is, you experience something and you learn. And the other is the instructional education. People tell you things, or you read about it and you learn. So both sides are needed. If Socrates had a very good saying that I still think of, and he said something like this. Let me see if I can get his exact quotation. He said something like, the unexamined life is not worth living. That is, we should examine our lives, and that's how we should live it. So that's what this happens. So anyway, I'll stop here because I can.
Civics was a subject then. It was a subject, but teachers didn't pay much attention to the teaching of it because it was not an exam subject. It was taught during the lesson time. Students were having a book, textbook, some little bit of homework was given, but the focus of making it very important was not there because it was not an exam subject. And you know that those days we had the LCE, PMR, SPM, all that. So there was more focus in those subjects. Then, anyway, what I observed in my students, besides the subject civics, is that In other ways, there were some other ways that civics was indirectly implemented. Firstly, there was the weekly assemblies. The weekly assemblies and the Negara Kuwasang, the Rukun Negara was stated, and I also noted that there was a month every year where it was dedicated to our Independence Month, we call it lah, Bulan Kemerdekaan. And many activities were organized, and there were many performances with various races taking part in Chinese dance, Indian dance. This happened in my school. This is the reality of my school. They took part, they wore their costumes of the other races, and they danced to their heart's content. It was quite nice to see, and I was proud of my school for that. And I also had the special, this one that I liked about my school was they greeted their teachers. They greeted their teachers. They had that kehormatan, kehormatan, and anywhere you saw them in not only in class, even along the corridor, they would bow their head and say, "Selamat pagi, cikgu," "Selamat petang, cikgu," something like that. Then after a number of years there, because for a while the penolong kanan hem, I think you all know what that is. And I worked with the prefects board, and it was good to see also how the prefects also helped to instill some kind of civic consciousness among the students, among themselves too. Every time before the Monday assembly, the prefects will be standing around the assembly area and practicing how to raise the flag, slowly, respectfully. The older ones will teach the younger ones how to do it. And then they will walk around and check those who are not, standing properly during assembly time, and make sure that everyone has their hands raised during the stating of the Rukun Negara. So it was in those ways also that I saw some civic consciousness in school at that time. To the civics, actual civic syllabus. So I looked into my grandkids' books, and I saw that actually it's all there. It's the civics that we knew as a subject is now incorporated into history, sejarah. So year six civics sejarah book has got. Wait, I wrote it down somewhere. Let me check. Where did I write it? Here. Okay. The year 6 civic books has got a lot about the Rukun Negara. It explains it very well. Okay. And for the Form 4 Sejarah book, there's a lot about the history of how our country got its independence. And at one of the chapters, there's also this thing on the election process, how the election happens in the country, and how all of us as citizens have our rights. And I saw, in looking at my grandson's book, I saw a nice little, this one of a role play, how you can be, if they are still young, they haven't qualified to be voters yet, but it was a role play for them to do in class so that they will know about their voting, how voting is carried out. So that was what I see now. Now come to my private school, okay? Still got time, Pat? And I'm actually quite impressed with this school. Civics is not taught as a formal subject here. But I see the way the principal puts it into everything that she does, like in the assembly, okay? We have a proper assembly, national anthem, the state anthem, and the Rukun Negara, all that is there. And the principal herself treats the students, parents, and teachers very fairly. She listens and takes actions, appropriate actions with fairness and integrity. And I've seen it on many accounts. So I'm there still because of, I think I like her way of managing the school. I also noticed that there's a weekly meeting that we have to do in the classroom. And because I'm a homeroom teacher there, there's a section where the students can voice out their concerns. So when that weekly meeting is conducted and I ask my students, okay, anything that you want to complain about, anything that is of concern to you all, of course, many times it is, teacher, we don't like the food, teacher. Can you do something about the food? Make it more tasty. Then I will write it down and I'll pass it to the student affairs department. So I think it is looked into. And there's another activity that happens every term, not only once a year. Every term, we have 3 terms of the school. There's a social awareness done through community service, okay, community service. And they go into many places. They go to the beach to do beach cleaning. They go to old folks' home, mingle with the old people there, do some cleaning up for the old people. Then they've also come to the migrant school. I'm also part-time a migrant school teacher. So that they come there to do some teaching, to have some fun with the students. So not in a formal way, but indirectly, I can see that there is some civic education conducted in these private schools. So I'm sure Datuk Freida will have some more to say about it for heading some private schools. So that's where I stand now. I'm proud of my experiences and especially to be where I am now also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lourett. So we need to move on. We'll keep your questions to the end. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this discussion. I come from the background of being an educator, and I like to speak on how I see civics education can be introduced. But my idea is more of a formal introduction in schools rather than the general one where we look at what people do, NGOs and so on. Based on the experience, because when I was a student, we had a civics class. We have the Pendidikan Civics. And I found that experience to be very useful, especially if the teacher that teaches civics education is a very open-minded, broad-minded person. And during that class experience when I was in school was that we used to share a lot of our own culture. And I think this is something that is quite lacking now in our society. We are in a way quite living in silos, the Chinese among the Chinese, the Indians among the Indians, Malays among the Malays. They don't group as we used to last time. And I think the introduction of a formal civics education would actually help to sort of reduce this kind of segregation because we need people to understand each other. I'd just like to share you this book. I wonder whether you can see it or not. Okay, this book. I don't know whether.
Hold it closer to yourself.
Okay, hold it closer to myself.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the
It's
title?
called can you Resam dan okay, Muhibah Masyarakat Malaysia. I actually applied for this book when I was in the university and about to graduate. And I wrote a letter to the Jabatan Perpaduan to ask for a set of books that describes the various culture, beliefs, and practices of every ethnic group in Malaysia. And it was very nice of the Jabatan Perpaduan to actually send me a whole set. I think altogether 12 books. I only have this left. Altogether 12 books of the various ethnic groups, their cultures, their beliefs, their pantang larang, and all this. I applied for this book simply because I do not know, at the time I did not know where I was going to be posted. And I want to make sure that wherever I'm posted, I will learn how to respect their cultures and beliefs, their pantang larangs. To me, that is very important. Because if you want to get people to listen to you, you must first listen to them. You must first understand them. And that's where, to me, I find civics education, if taught formally, will be a good start. And we need everybody to come in, not only for non-Muslim students, but also for Muslim students, so that everybody learns about each other. And to do that, we need to create a very strong curriculum. Since I was involved in curriculum development, I think it is very important for the Ministry of Education to get people who are actually experts in their own ethnic culture, in their own religion. Not just teachers. You can have teachers who are called Buddhists, but they don't know anything about Buddhism. You cannot get this type of people. You need people who are knowledgeable. In order to get, let's say, for example, to know about the Indian culture, the Hindu culture, or the Indian culture, then we need to get from maybe the Hindu societies, the Indian societies, people who are actually in the know to come and help to develop the curriculum, and not just depend on the teachers in school or the people in the Ministry of Education. We need to rope in a lot of people to give good input. Then only we can develop a good education program, a good curriculum. And of course, being also a teacher trainer, it is important that we select good teachers, or I would say people who are really suitable to teach the subjects. And it should come from all races, it should come from all religions, so that everyone can contribute a bit to the input and to do it properly. And the third thing I'd like to talk about is about the training. I think sometimes when Malaysia introduces any new subject or any new curriculum, they implement it too quickly. And because of it, many of the good programs that we have in Malaysia for education was not carried out properly. And then it became a failure. Not because Malaysia's education system is bad. Malaysia's education, from the Ministry of Education, there were actually a lot of very good programs, but they were not well planned, implemented too hastily, too fast, and without proper training for the teachers. And this is where we have to look into if we want to introduce civics education in the school. We have to give the ministry time to plan the curriculum, and we need the people from the universities that are doing from the education faculty, teachers training college, or now they call it the Institute of Teacher Education, to develop or train these teachers to be ready, not next year or the year after, but prepared for 5 years at least. And once everything is in place, then introduce them so that everybody is ready. I like to give an example. When we were having a seminar, I talked to one of the Singaporean teacher, and I noticed that Singapore doesn't seem to change the syllabus very much. And his response was, "Who said so?" Then I said, then how come we don't notice any announcement of these curriculum changes, syllabus changes? He says, no. In Singapore, we do it this way. Teachers are very exam oriented. They will teach according to the requirements of the exam. So what they will do is, they will set 2 exam questions that are different from the normal one. And then the teachers will look at it and say, hey, I have not seen these type of questions before. And they focus on this question. And they will do this yearly for about 5 years. And while they were doing that, they trained the teachers for the new syllabus. So after 5 years, when this has been slowly done to the teachers without their knowledge, they will announce, we are having a new curriculum now, or our syllabus has changed now, and the teachers will say, oh, we already know about it. There is no shock element involved in the introduction. Whereas in Malaysia, we see, for example, when we introduced ETAMS, it was a shock announcement. Suddenly, next year, I want science and maths to be taught in English. The teachers were not ready. The universities were not ready to train the teachers. The teachers' education, institutions of teacher education also were not ready to train the teachers. And the teachers in school were not ready. So if we want to introduce this, we need to get proper people to give us input how the curriculum should be developed. And this is where the Ministry of Education need to be very open who they need to invite, not only within the confine of the Ministry of Education, but get people from different associations, NGOs, religious organizations that are practicing. I'm not saying just the organization, but there must be a group of people that who are practicing and who are in the know. For example, if you want to know about Indian culture, you need to get people who know Tamil or something like that. Not just anybody, or you can't get me to talk about Chinese culture because I'm a banana, meaning I don't know Chinese language. So I will not be able to give you a full picture of what the Chinese culture is all about, although I'm a Chinese. So these are the things that we need to consider if we want to introduce civics education to the school. And I think it is important that the children from young should learn to see each other, that although we are different, we all want the same thing: harmony, peace, happiness. We like to be living peacefully together, happily together. And once we see that our differences are not a threat, but they actually make our life more enriched, then there is no fear, there is no what you call prejudice, there's no sense of I am better than you. We are all different, but we can accept the differences. We can embrace the differences. And I think that is the important aspect of civics education that we need. And of course, another thing is we need to also consider, are we the adults, the role models? While we can give good education, civics education, are the teachers in the school, are the adults in the society providing good models for our children, for the youngsters? I mean, like, if let's say we have moral education, but the teachers don't behave morally, then what's the point? If they do, like, for example, now one of the issue is moral education only looks at facts. They are not looking at critical thinking of certain values. Then what are we teaching our children? We are teaching answer according to this that we want, but do not think critically. And this is where we are missing the point. We do not encourage, although we say we want our students to think critically and creatively, we are actually not encouraging it truly. We only talk about it. But when it comes to exam, I want the answers to be this and only this. And this is, I think, one of the biggest problems in moral education. You can't argue about values. You have to answer according to the values the Ministry of Education has actually put in. And this is our issue. We can also make civics education as something that is non-exam, so that the people are more relaxed. I mean, you can't teach moral values by having exam. But we need to show them, and probably in schools, we need to have different celebrations for different cultures and all this to be done. And I would also say that if, let's say, in the sekolah kebangsaan, sekolah menengah kebangsaan, we need to put values of different ethnic groups, different religion in all the posters, and not only confined to one particular race, one particular religion. Then everybody can see each other as, hey, everybody has some value, something valuable to share in the community. And I think that is a very important part of what civics education is all about. I think I will stop here and let the rest ask questions, or they like to know more or comments, then please do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ooi. So, we are at 9 o'clock, but we still have time, and I would invite Datuk Freida to round it all up, give her views, as well as perhaps share on what she sees, how she sees the way forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Pat. I think you must give me 3 months to talk, not 5 minutes to talk about the education.
I think 5 minutes is a goner already. You know, you have as much time as you need.
Well, the thing is this, I did not go into education as a teacher. I started it more than 4 decades ago for my own children. And then now, like you said, for my grandchildren. There are many things. I have 2 sets of systems in my school. I have an international school and I also have a national school. When we talk about national unity, we talk about moral education, we talk about civics education, you know, I feel that these subjects should not be taught from a textbook. It must be something they need to experience. It is something they need to share, you know. You have to share good values. And also, I personally feel that we should not be defined by our race and our religion. Because race and religion is very private. I always tell people there are some political parties who would like to champion my race and champion my religion. And I said, no, I don't need anybody to champion my race or my religion. That's mine to hold, and that should not define me. And I tell my students, I said, we should be defined by good human beings. And there's only one race that we should fight for and champion is the human race. And in school, we teach them to challenge their minds because you got to be practical and realistic, you know. It is a rat race out there. You've got to be competitive. So we challenge their minds. We give them exams. We do all these sort of things. And people say, oh, you know, you should not teach to the exam and so on and so forth. But hello, the whole system is like that. You can't have a different system and expect your children to do well. We give children work. They must learn to work hard. They must learn how to handle stress, you know. Because you see, I can't have parents say, oh, we don't want all this work. We don't want all this homework. And then at the end of the day, they say, okay, how many A's are my kids going to have? I want them to go to Ivy League universities. Well, if you want to go there, you need to challenge their minds. But at the same time, we say we strengthen their body corporate, meaning they must learn to work as a team. How do you learn to work as a team? We do it on stage. That means they perform. Performing arts is compulsory in my school. From the time when they come from preschool, 18 months to 18 years, they must take part in performing arts. It's compulsory. They have to learn to sing, to dance, gymnastics, theatre and drama, and musical instrument. So it's a very big thing in school. Why? Because this is where they learn teamwork. They learn responsibility, they learn commitment, and they learn, you know, to time management. Because when they have rehearsals, they need to also do their homework. So they need to learn to manage their time, you know, and they need to value time. So they learn all these things, and you don't get that in textbooks. So they learn that on the stage. And they also learn that when they play sports, because we are very big in team sports. So everybody belongs to a house. Families belong to a house. Teachers belong to a house. They compete in a healthy manner, but they have this sense of esprit de corps when they play sports, you know. Then we talk about nurturing the soul. What do? Now you must know they are very big in performing arts. So they use those skills to perform in senior living facilities, in orphanages, they do charity shows and so on and so forth. So they do a lot of voluntary work. And then we have expeditions. Expeditions, we take them out. They go to the kampong, they do lots of things in the kampong. So they live, they sort of experience what it's like in the kampong. And we also have a very big project we call Kota to Desa. As you know, my schools, one in Churas, that's the national school, and one Damansara Heights, the international school. They're all city kids. They've never been to the kampong. And they're all mainly non-Malays. Even the Malays, they've not been to the kampong, So what we do, we take them to the kampong 2 nights, 3 days, and they stay with foster parents in the kampong. And I tell you, it's a very good experience because at the end of the weekend, the parents, the foster parents, take them like their own children. And the children also somehow really sort of have a very deep bonding with the mak and bapa angkat in the kampong. And we've seen over time, during fruiting season, they all go back to the kampong because now they have their own kampong, Although it's a kampong angkat, but they have a kampong angkat, mak, ibu, angkat, and they go back during durian season and rambutan season. And the kampong parents, foster parents also come to KL, invited by the KL family to come see the Twin Tower, go to Putrajaya, and so on and so forth. So there itself, national unity is grown organically. So it's blurred. You don't see any race difference, Now, another big project that we do, children work in the hospital. They go to the hospital. One time they were required to spend 10 hours a year working in the hospital. So when you work in a hospital, you will see children of different races. So they see children first, people first, before they see race. It's blurred, okay? Now, another thing that I've done, because you see in international school, private school, naturally you get more non-Malays than Malays. When I first started, you get very few Malays in the private school. This was in 1983. So I made it a very, a rule that Malay children must be divided equally when we have group work. Because otherwise, you get the Chinese children in a group, the Indian children one group, Malay children, So they must be spread out. And this must be done consciously. Over time, it has become natural. So now we call ourselves Cempakans. We're all Cempakans. We all belong either to Rumah Helang, which is yellow, Rumah Harimau, which is red, Rumah Seladang, which is green, and Rumah Beruang, which is blue. And even now, the kids, they've left school, they are all working, and I've got their children in my school. So I've got a lot of Cempaka Cucu lah, about 300 Cempaka Cucus, and they all belong all to these houses. So their loyalty is being a Cempaka, being a Helang, and it becomes very natural. And then it's also, there's no question about race and religion. I personally feel that in school, like in the government school now, you have moral education. Then you have Ugama. Moral education is for non-Muslims, Ugama for Muslims. And I feel this is not right. All the children must be brought up under one platform of civics education. Ugama must be taught after school. Ugama must be taught at home. And it doesn't matter what Ugama. It's your Ugama, And in school, it must be civics education, but not from a book. It must be something they have to experience, something they have to share, some things they have to do together, And we cannot call it moral education. Moral education is for the individual, for you to be a morally upright person, But civics is actually for society. How I treat you and how you treat me. Respect each other and understand each other. And I feel that there's no place for religion in school. Honestly, I don't believe that is so. We just respect one another as human beings. We respect one another as brotherhood, sisterhood, and that's what we should be as Malaysians. I don't want to feel that, I can understand the Muslims, the Buddhists, and all, and so on and so forth, but I need to embrace you as a fellow Malaysian. I feel that is so. Now, just now you mentioned about the Rukun Negara. Rukun Negara. Unfortunately, I think Rukun Negara, we always get the children to just recite the Rukun Negara. It is not put into practice, living the Rukun Negara. How do you live the Rukun Negara? We say believe in God, interfaith service project maybe, or talk about the good values of all the religions, what it is. Believe in God, Rukun Negara. People can say, which God are you talking about? But actually, behind that is actually the values of the religion, all religion. That's what it's supposed to mean, I think. And then we talk loyalty to country. How do you become loyal to country? So here we talk about the Kota to Desa expedition that we do in school. You appreciate the kampung people, you appreciate what people, how hard their lives is, Like for instance, they go to a fishing village, stay in a kampung where there's a fishing village and see how the fishermen work. And I always tell the children, next time when you buy fish, do not bargain. And if you go to a kampung in Terengganu or Kelantan, they make batik, please do not bargain. Just buy and maybe give a little tip, And yet people go to a Prada shop, just sign the credit card and that's it, right? But then when you buy batik from the pakcik in the kampung, you bargain. Please don't do that. So you learn to understand how people live. Then we talk about the constitution. The children have not even learned about the parliament. We talk about Undi 18. Have we prepared the children in Form 3, Form 4? Because by the time they leave school, they have to undi, right? They have to vote. But we have not taught them so they can be manipulated. So they have not sort of given this idea that they have a right and they have to vote responsibly. Must understand what is just, what is justice, because then if they see anything that's unjust, they can voice their own opinion, So the rule of law, so they have to live the Rukun Negara, courtesy and morality. This is something they need to learn, empathy, humility when they go to the hospital to visit sick people, go to senior living facilities. We have what we call a project in school where we get the children to go to a senior living facility, but they create a bonding with one old person and call that person grand friends. So they do this once a month for 2 hours. This is Machura school, So for 1 year, they have one grand friend. So they do things together with that old person. And this is great because they develop empathy, humility, love, and the old person feels valued, and feels that, they have this bond, this love between the old and the young. And this is very important, I think, because especially young people nowadays, they're so glued with their devices and so on and so forth. They have no chance to practice empathy. So we do this in school so that they can learn to look after an old person, feed the person, the grand friend, this special grand friend, feed, talk, and do work together, and so on. So I think this is something we should have in schools, that we live the Rukun Negara. not just to recite it during assemblies. So that's what we have done in school. And I'm glad to see that many of my school children who have left school still think fondly of school, of their teachers, and of their friends, you know. And race and religion doesn't come in at all. I think all of us here in this group, our age, well, I'll be 80 next year. So I'm like those days when we were in a convent school, we never talk about religion. We never talk about race, you know. When I was in a convent school, they were praying in front of me, at the back of me, at the side of me, and we go to the chapel and so on and so forth. I'm still a Muslim. You know, I don't need anyone to champion my religion. I know of my faith and I'm still a Muslim and I'm not scared at all. So it should be like that. We should not have race and religion to define us. We should be defined by, are you a kind person? Are you gentle? Are you a beautiful person in and out? That's what is very important that we should impart in our children. So thank you, Pat. I think I've said enough. Maybe.